Well, is this thing on? That was quick. I was just on the phone with somebody I was watching the trial, I was watching the Alec Baldwin trial, and then I'm like, oh my God, is he crying right now? Why is he crying? And then I go and I see that this damn case was dismissed. Oh my God, guys. And why was it dismissed? It was dismissed for a few reasons. It's like, I didn't even have enough time to put together the thumbnail or any of this other stuff. I'm thinking this trial is going to drag out for some time. My hair has fluffed out since this morning. We live streamed earlier today. Wow. Dismissed in 3 days. So we're going to watch it. I mean, I have it up right now. Look at this. Look at this, guys. He's crying. This is serious. Lead and I were supposed to stream today. We had to do a scheduling reshift. You are watching history. This is Alec Baldwin right now. 10, 15 minutes ago, he's crying. He is crying. Man, y'all ain't sorry. Sorry, guys. I just got a text from Lead. People ain't shit sometimes. Listen, Alec is in court crying right now because he is not going to have to face charges for this crime. What are we talking about? For those of you that don't know, Alec Baldwin, one of the most famous actors in the United States, has been on trial for the last 3 days because of a shooting incident. He's an actor and also an executive producer. There was a movie called Rust. He was in charge of that movie, and they were shooting a scene. And as they were shooting that scene, and I say shooting with cameras, they were shooting this film. And in the moment, there was a woman who was in charge of scene preparation and some of the things that you would put on the scene. One of the things that they used was a gun. Now, the gun was loaded. The gun was used. The gun was discharged. The gun was shot like it normally would be in a movie, but the gun was shot and actually killed somebody. Now, I'm just popping in tonight, guys, to talk about this real quick. But the gun was shot and someone died. The person that prepped the gun obviously had a responsibility. Alec Baldwin, as an executive producer, had a responsibility to make sure that the props and things that everyone uses is safe. This is a man that's been in movies for years. Years. Okay, like I said, I was just on the phone a few minutes ago. I saw this break and I was like, we need to watch it. So I'm not even gonna waste y'all's time. This AP thing is like 7-8 hours long. We're not gonna waste time. We're gonna just go to the moment where the judge makes her ruling. And in her ruling, I want to go back after the fact, because that's why you see Alec sitting there crying for a second. You see the woman behind him really happy. She looks like she's smiling. I don't know if those are smiles or tears or whatever. Shout out to the DUI guy. Shout out to Chandler Remington. These guys are actually on the scene, and I've been watching them for the last 2 or 3 days. I'm so proud of them. They have been covering this trial, one in the courtroom, one live streaming. If there's any YouTubers that I respect covering this trial, it's those two. Chandler, sister to the channel. I'm so proud of them. But let's go back. We're going to watch the judge and see what she had to say a few minutes ago. And maybe we go to like a piece of this. There was a few witnesses on the stand, but this is day 3 of the trial. The other thing that I want to show you guys is why the trial is, it's taking a second to load here. Why the judge decided to dismiss charges against Alec Baldwin. They decided to do it after the defense alleges government misconduct. We over here have been watching a ton of government misconduct for a little while now. But it's great to see that something is actually being done about this at this point in time. Shout out to Glenville. Okay. Let's go back in and let's see exactly what the judge had to say. And then we can rewind to see how we came to that point, because there was a lot of stuff happening this morning. This is a 7-hour stream for the day. I just want to show you guys the highlights, right? Because this was a hearing for a motion to dismiss, and that's one of the defense attorneys, I believe. But let's go to the moment where the judge dropped her ruling. I think it's right about here. Let's watch.
The defendant to tell me what he's talking about, and he has declined. I want the court to take notice of that.
Thank you. You may step down. All right, any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
All right, argument, let's not, 15 minutes aside sufficient?
I don't even think that is necessary, frankly.
Do you want to make argument?
Further argument.
All right.
I don't think either side needs further argument on this time.
All right,
Here we go.
so dismissal with prejudice is a very extreme sanction. And case law is very clear that because it's very extreme, I have to go through every single element, and I have to make a very good record as to why I'm seeing what I'm seeing. So in order to establish a Brady violation, the defendant must show that the prosecution suppressed evidence, the evidence was favorable to the accused, and the evidence was material to the defense. So let's go through the elements. Suppression of evidence. The definition of suppression of elements, this is Case versus Hatch, is while the first element requires proof that the prosecution suppressed or withheld the evidence in question, it does not require.
I'm sorry. I mean, y'all are saying it. Y'all are saying it. Stevie says it right here. Why hasn't this happened in the Young Thug trial? I'm going to start this. We're going to have a conversation. I don't want to interrupt the judge, but this case is being dismissed right now, guys. Breaking news a few minutes ago because of Brady material. Sounds a little familiar. But let's go back in, Stevie. I'm going to start this and we'll come to that question after. Let's see what the judge has to say here. What is Brady evidence? Why is it important in criminal defense trials or criminal trials? And why should you have to do the right thing? Here, Alec Baldwin has this case dismissed. Let's look.
Finding of bad faith or any other culpable state of mind on the part of the prosecutor. This prong is satisfied. The Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office and the prosecution failed to disclose the supplemental report to defense and provide defense an opportunity to inspect the rounds collected into evidence that Mr. Teskey gave. Is the evidence favorable to the accused? The second Brady element is whether the suppressed evidence was favorable to the accused, either as impeachment or exculpatory evidence. This prong is satisfied. The suppressed evidence is favorable to the accused. It is impeachment evidence, has even been offered in this trial as impeachment evidence.
This is what
and
Brian
is potentially
Steele's been saying.
Exculpatory to the defense. Critically, the exculpatory value cannot be analyzed at such a late juncture because of the non-disclosure. Is the evidence material? While post-trial discovery of evidence under Brady requires a reasonable probability that the result of the proceeding would have been different, discovery of evidence during trial requires an evaluation of whether the late tender has impeded the effective use of evidence in such a way that it impacts the fundamental fairness of the proceedings. And that is State versus Huerta Castro. This evidence is material. The late discovery of this evidence during trial has impeded the effective use of evidence in such a way that it has impacted the fundamental fairness of the proceedings. The defense is not in a position to test the state's theory as to the source of the live rounds that killed Ms. Hutchins. I'm also going to take a look at Harper, State versus Harper. The assessment of sanctions depends upon the extent of the government's culpability, weighed against the amount of prejudice to the state, quoting Chenard. Let's go through culpability. Our case law generally provides that the refusal to comply with a district court's discovery order only rises to the level of exclusion or dismissal where the state's conduct is especially culpable, such as where evidence is unilaterally withheld by the state in bad faith, or all access to the evidence is precluded by state intransience. The state is highly culpable for its failure to provide this discovery to the defendant. The state unilaterally withheld a supplemental report.
Ooh!
Santa Fe County Sheriff's Officer made the decision, and apparently also with the prosecutor, as pursuant to Hancock's testimony, that the evidence was of no evidentiary value and failed to connect the evidence to the instant case. The case agent, as well as pursuant to Hancock's testimony, Ms. Morrissey, was aware of the new evidence and yet did not make an effort to disclose it to defense. The state's willful withholding of this information was intentional and deliberate. If this conduct does not rise to the level of bad faith, it certainly comes so near to bad faith as to show signs of scorching. Prejudice. When discovery has been produced late, prejudice does not accrue unless the evidence is material and the disclosure is so late that it undermines the defendant's preparation for trial. The court concludes that this conduct is highly prejudicial to the defendant.
Wow.
The jury has been sworn, jeopardy has attached, and this disclosure during the course of trial is so late that it undermines the defendant's preparation for trial.
Kat, you want to come up
There
and
is
talk?
no way for the court to right this wrong.
Kat, you want to talk about this one?
Lesser sanctions under Harper. Trial courts possess broad discretionary authority to decide what sanction to impose when a discovery order is
Shout out to
violated.
Gail.
State versus Lemire.
Look at him about to cry.
Sanction of dismissal is the only warranted remedy. The jury has been sworn, jeopardy has attached, and a mistrial would not be based upon manifest necessity.
Wow.
Further, the sanction of dismissal is warranted in this case. The state has repeatedly made representations to defense and to the court that they were compliant with all their discovery obligations. Despite their repeated representations, they have continued to fail to disclose critical evidence to the defendant. Brady and Harper are satisfied. Dismissal with prejudice is warranted.
Oh,
Court
my
also
God.
has power, inherent power. Per State versus Lemire, where discovery violations inject needless delay into the proceedings, courts may impose meaningful sanctions to effectuate their inherent power and promote efficient judicial administration. The state's discovery violation has injected a needless, incurable delay into the instant jury trial. Dismissal with prejudice is warranted to ensure the integrity of the judicial system and the efficient administration of justice. Your motion to dismiss with prejudice is granted.
There it is. There it is.
Now, with respect to the jury, I don't imagine you all want to return on Monday. I will take care of the jury.
Thank you.
We are in recess.
Wow. Alec Baldwin, y'all are watching it, just got off of this case because of prosecutorial misconduct. What are we talking about in the Young Thug case? Where's that? I mean, Brian Steele is standing on furniture like, yo, Glenn, wow, what was, I honestly, guys, like, I'll be, we watched the one Young Thug trial. I know you guys are here for Baldwin. I know you're here for Baldwin. And I'm going to go back. And Kat, if you want to come up, come up. Do you see how this judge in 3 days saw prosecutorial misconduct? And I want to go back and watch what the prosecutor was on the witness stand. This is what Brian Steele is trying to do. And I threw my hair up. I don't even care how I look right now. Think about this. Brian, like Alec Baldwin just got this dismissed right now. I'm watching Twitter. I'm trying to, as soon as Thugger Daily drops it, I hope that this prosecutor in the Young Thug case is really watching what's going on right now. People, Americans, we don't like corruption. Globally, People don't like corruption. This is wild, guys. Some of y'all are like, I watched it live. This just happened 20 minutes ago. I was on the phone. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to go on with messy hair. I don't care. Like, you know, when you tie up your bun and you don't care for the day, like that's where I was. Like Lead and I were supposed to stream and then we had to reschedule. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take the night off. I'm going to relax. And, Brian Steele, I hope you're watching this because now you can use this case to get like this whole Young Thug thing done. Hey, Brandon Lesko, it's good to see you. There's just so much. There's just so much happening here. So much. All right. Let's go back a little bit because one of you guys told me that there was going to be a hearing to dismiss this case at about, I think it was 3 p.m., 6 p.m. Eastern time. I just want to scroll back for those of you that are just tuning in because like we talked about the bullets, we talked about everything. I think it was right around this moment. And I am going to do it on a little bit of speed. Now, here's the other thing. Alec Baldwin was going in and out of the courtroom. He was just standing up and walking out. Oh, there's a press conference that's live. Do y'all want to see the press conference? They're setting it up. I'll keep checking, but there's going to be a live press conference. This has been the speediest trial ever. 3 days. Young Thug has been sitting in jail for 2 years. Oh my God. If prosecutorial misconduct is not on a lot of people's minds right now, I mean, I don't know what else is on your mind. This is crazy. This is crazy. But let's go in. Let's see what they have to say here. Let's screen share first. You see how later in the day I get tired? I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Let's go to the CNN article first because this just came out and I will bring you guys back. All right, so here's what happened. In a stunning move Friday, Judge Mary Marlowe Summer dismissed the voluntary manslaughter charge against actor Alec Baldwin in the 2021 death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins on the set of the Western film Rust. Let's scroll in so you guys can follow along. Baldwin's attorney had filed a motion to dismiss the case, arguing misconduct by the state investigators and not properly disclosing evidence in the case. The judge agreed the state improperly disclosed evidence to the defense and dismissed their case without prejudice, meaning it cannot be bought again. There is no way for the court to right this wrong. Baldwin can be seen crying as the decision was announced, and he immediately hugged his wife, Hilaria, as court was excused for the day. The decision came after a chaotic hearing Friday, just a few days into Baldwin's involuntary manslaughter trial related to the fatal shooting of Hutchins on October 21st of 2021 on the New Mexico set of the film Rust. Baldwin had pled not guilty and could have faced up to 18 months in prison. Baldwin was practicing a cross draw, pulling a gun from a holster on the opposite side of his body from his draw hand with a prop gun when it fired a live round, killing Hutchins and injured Dr. Joel Sousa. Testimony was halted by the judge on Friday, who sent the jury home for the day as she considered the motion by the actor's legal team to have the case thrown out. Based on allegations, prosecutors did not properly turn over evidence. Do y'all see this? Prosecutors did not properly turn over evidence. I really hope that the people involved in the YSL trial are watching this. Prosecutors did not properly turn over evidence. What happened with the little Woody thing? Alec Baldwin's team is a team representing one defendant. The YSL trial has like 6 defendants. What you guys just saw was how easy on day 3, another judge in a whole nother state was just about to throw this out. And you know what's so crazy? Thugger Daily just posted something, this whole Alec Baldwin thing. Do you know that he tagged Judge Glanville in it? Like, Judge Glanville, are you watching? The same thing in 3 days. This actor was able to get his case dismissed. And I apologize, guys. I live near an airport. That is a terrible plane engine. If you can hear it, apologies. If you can't, we'll clean that audio up on replay. Judge Glanville should be watching this. Judge Krause should be watching this. This is breaking news. Now I think the pressure is on. I think the pressure is on next week in the YSL case after this ruling right here. If I was Brian Steele. Okay, let's go back in. This is really disturbing. Let's keep going. In court a day earlier, a crime scene technician testified that a man had delivered some ammunition to the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office in March after the conviction of the Rust armorer, Hannah Gutierrez Reed. The man, Troy Teskey, a retired police officer and friend of the armorer's father, told investigators he believed the ammunition could be associated with the Rust incident. So here we go. Magic bullets. Magic bullets are being delivered somewhere, and they're like, hey, magic bullets, check these out. It could be related to that crime scene at the movie incident. It could be. The crime scene technician, Marissa Poppel, testified. However, the technician testified that the items were cataloged separately from the Baldwin case and were not included in the Rust case inventory or tested to see if they matched the initial or matched the lethal round. Now, what do we know? We know that there is a chain of custody when it comes to evidence. If something is related to a crime scene, if something is related to a crime, when evidence is collected on the scene, there's a process for it. When evidence is transferred, there's a process to it. When evidence for particular cases, when there's 2 different cases, like this one, because the woman got tried and Alec is being tried. When the same evidence is being used, is a chain of custody that needs to happen with law enforcement. It's really important. And that's the thing. So much about the law, guys, so much about criminal defense is procedural, at least on the defense side. Is to make sure police followed proper procedure, that lawyers follow proper procedure, and that the case is airtight. Okay? Let's keep going in because the plot is starting to thicken. Okay. Baldwin's team argued prosecutors did not properly disclose this evidence to the defense and asked for the case to be dismissed. In response, prosecutor Carrie Morrissey said investigators determined the ammunition was not a match to those found on the Rush set and had no evidentiary value in the case. This is a wild goose chase. In a very unusual development, Judge Mary Marlowe Summer asked for Poppel to be called back to the stand to discuss the rounds outside of the presence of the jury. Oh, Glanville. The witness, judge, and attorneys all donned blue gloves. I don't know why this truck is coming up. I don't want to buy a truck, guys. I'm just saying. and attorneys all donned blue gloves and gathered around the table in the center of the courtroom where the envelope holding the rounds were unsealed and examined by the judge to determine whether it matches the rounds recovered from the film set. Think about that. Think about that. The judge got off the bench, sat around a table with the attorneys, opened the evidence bag to see if the rounds matched. If the rounds matched the rounds from the set. And let's see what the result is. The court was silent and thick with tension as the judge compared the rounds. The judge ordered additional witnesses to testify before she renders a ruling on Baldwin's motion to dismiss the case. The case has been marked by years-long fits and starts with turnovers in prosecutors, a prosecution stalled by questions surrounding the integrity of the evidence. So they've known. And a steady spate of motions from Baldwin's team attempting to get the charge thrown out. In opening statements on Wednesday, prosecutors alleged Baldwin was reckless with firearms on set and violated the cardinal rules for firearms safety with his actions. He pointed a gun at another human being, cocked the hammer, and pulled that trigger in reckless disregard for Miss Hutchinson's safety. Look at Alec's face right here. Oh my goodness. However, the defense blamed the film's armorer and the first assistant director, jointly in charge of the firearm safety on set, for allowing a real bullet to be loaded into the prop gun and failing to make it safe before reaching Baldwin. I mean, hello. That's kind of a no-brainer for set safety. But also at the same time, we use some state resources here. The state of New Mexico was charging this man with this crime. Granted, I will tell you, it's not okay that celebrities that are afforded excellent criminal defense and regular people that may be not able to afford proper criminal defense get this type of stuff. But this is the difference. I just want you to really think, if you've been following the YSL trial, to really think about the difference. Because what this judge just ruled upon is the same thing. The same thing in front of Judge Glanville right now. The same thing. Maybe not same in facts. Maybe not same in circumstances, but Brady material. Look at it, Judge. Look at it. Why is it so goddamn hard in Georgia? But in New Mexico, somebody's case can be dismissed in 3 days. Let's go back in. I'm sorry. I'm hot right now. I'm in rare form. Okay. This was an unspeakable tragedy, but Alec Baldwin committed no crime. He was an actor acting, playing the role of Harlan Rust. Attorney Alex Shapiro said, "These cardinal rules are not cardinal rules in a movie set." That's it. CNN got something out quick. CNN was like, let's type this up and get it out. They typed it up so quickly. I still can't believe it, to be honest. Wow. Okay, let's go to law and crime. And everyone thought this trial was going to go on for weeks. It literally has just gone on for 3 days. 3 days. 3 days. While I bring that up, I'm just going to go to a few supers as you guys are reacting to the news with me. Shout out to Big Dave, who became a YouTube member. Welcome to the community. I'm in rare form right now, but man, oh man, I just wanted to jump on here as fast as possible to talk to you guys about this. Shout out to Talking Trash and Truths, who has gifted you guys 5 AV to the 7th power memberships, like in plural. It is amazing. Thank you so much for that. I'm really excited about that. But before we get into it, because it looks like we just got the reactions from court, looks like there's a live press conference happening right now that I want to bring to you guys so we can see what Alec Baldwin's initial reactions were right outside of the courthouse. We're going to present. And again, shout out to 2 of my favorite people, the DUI guy and Chandler Remington. Chandler's a sister to this channel, and I believe that she is at the courthouse like right now. The 2 of them are in the vicinity. So that is Alec's reaction.
Again, the case against Alec Baldwin has just been dismissed with prejudice, meaning that the state can't bring the involuntary manslaughter charge again to.
And
I don't.
What if Johnson stepped down?
is that the prosecutor?
He says that he respects the court's decision.
Oh, that's a walk of shame. They're following the prosecutor.
Try to catch up here a little bit.
Goddamn Carrie.
You heard my testimony. Did you see my testimony in court?
What'd you think of that? Well, this was a disaster for the New Mexico judicial system.
Wow.
There's no other way to look at it.
Here we go.
Stunning development. And
So everybody, take it easy.
Oh, she's so embarrassed.
just 30 seconds to talk to her.
But I just did. You guys decided to step in. What is it? It has separate keys now. So you did know. Sheriff, you heard my testimony today, right? Yes, that's okay. My testimony is what I stand.
Give her a little space, guys.
My testimony is what I stand on.
How did you feel about the defense using those older words?
No more. Do you understand? No more.
That is the prosecutor walking off. That is the prosecutor that just lost this case. That is probably what DA Love and Hilton should be doing right now. But that is a prosecutor that just lost this case. That was a prosecutor that was just sitting on the stand. That was a prosecutor that had to explain why Brady evidence, Brady material was not given to the defense team in 3 days. And now, walk of shame, leaving the courthouse, being chased by reporters, having to explain what just happened. Having to explain, has no comment. My testimony is my testimony. Give her space, guys. Give her time. ET, TMZ, all of those things. You are trying to put an actor in jail when someone else is already in jail for the crime.
Do you believe that there will be any kind of consequences for what happened?
And she's running. She's running. But what I want to do, guys, look at Ann. Look at this. Is that Miss Levy? She's like, I'm done. I'm trying to talk to her. She doesn't want to talk to me. So here's what we will do. I want to see the prosecutor on the stand answer some of these questions. So that is at least what we will go back to. And again, guys, I'm going to skate out of here after that. But, you know, during this trial, this was a really pivotal moment. The judge had to ask this prosecutor, why did you not turn over Brady evidence? Right? Why did you not do that? We didn't see that from you. Here we go. Let's listen to what she has to say here.
EDQ props that were originally in Texas did not match the live rounds on the set of Rust. And that's testimony that we heard during the Gutierrez trial. So what ended up happening was Mr. Bowles, Ms. Gutierrez's lawyer, put Mr. Teskey on a witness list and was intending to call him as a witness to the Gutierrez trial. I conducted a pretrial interview of Mr. Teskey, and I want to back up. I did at this point have some understanding that Mr. Teskey had had contact with law enforcement regarding these rounds that he still had in Arizona. So these are rounds that never left Arizona. They were always in the possession of Thel Reed and Troy Teskey. They never went to Texas. They never came to New Mexico. That's what all of the evidence indicated. So I understood that Detective Hancock had communication with Mr. Teskey about trying to get those rounds, and Detective Hancock was unable to get those rounds from Mr. Teskey. I did not find that particularly concerning because those rounds had never left Arizona. The filming of Rust was in the state of New Mexico. And the rounds that were taken from PDQ went from Arizona to Texas to Albuquerque. So ammunition that is in the state of Arizona that has never left Arizona did not strike me that it had significant evidentiary value. Then, and I will say, I believe I actually saw a photo.
Guys, I'm sorry. This is a prosecutor on the witness stand testifying. This can be done. It can be done. Oh my God. This is just really hard to watch, but let's keep going.
At that point in time, I was able to look at the ammunition myself, and it was visibly dissimilar than the rounds from the set of Rust. We then cut to November of 2023. Mr. Bowles has put Mr. Teskey on a witness list for the Hannah Gutierrez case. We conducted a pretrial interview with Mr. Teskey on November 2nd of 2023. At that point in time, he brought up that he was still in possession of these live rounds that were Thel Reed's live rounds that had never left the state of Arizona. I then, when he started, I think he indicated during the pretrial interview that they were from the same batch that was sourced from Joe Swanson. And I then said, we should get those from you. I had a conversation with Detective Hancock after that pretrial interview about how we could get the rounds from Mr. Teskey, and we were trying to figure out if we could send a local law enforcement agency to pick them up. I was then decided that I needed to figure out if that was necessary since they had never left Arizona. And up to that point, it was my impression that they did not match the live rounds from the set of Rust. I then, as I recall, reached out to Mr. Bowles. He and I had a conversation about whether or not the rounds should be tested by the FBI. And I was still trying to figure out if I could get the rounds from Arizona to New Mexico. So I asked Mr. Bowles to please send me a photograph of the rounds from Troy Teskey so that I could see with my eyes whether they were even remotely similar. If they were similar, I could go through the steps of obtaining the ammunition, connecting probably with local law enforcement, having a local law enforcement agency go to Mr. Teskey's residence and collect them. I didn't want to do that if they didn't look anything like the rounds from the set of Rust, because all six rounds from the set of Rust are identical to each other. So when I had this conversation with Mr. Bowles, he provided me the photograph that I showed this morning. And this is it was my understanding that this was a photograph from Troy Teskey. So Troy and I don't communicate. He's a defense witness. I can't communicate with a defense witness. So Mr. Bowles, as I recall, texted me this photo, and this is a photo that Mr. Teskey took at my request so that I could determine whether this ammunition was related in any way to the set of rust, because it never left the state of Arizona. So if it never left the state of Arizona, the only way that it is relevant to the rust investigation is if it has any similarity to the live rounds that were found on the set of rust, because we were at that point trying to figure out the source of the live rounds. When I received this photograph from Mr. Bowles, I could immediately tell that these are very dissimilar from the live rounds that were found on the set of rust. They have brass primers. So this is what was presented to the prosecution as the rounds that were in Mr. Teskey's possession. They have brass primers and not silver primers. One of them, the one on the left, appears to be a Starline brass casing, but they have truncated cone projectiles. We had seen ammunition that looked exactly like this, not exactly, but very, very similar. And that ammunition was the ammunition that was collected from the sheriff's department and went to the FBI for testing and was determined not to be similar in any way to the live rounds on the set of rust. So when I saw this photograph, I could see that it was not at all similar to the live rounds on the set of rust. And I decided not to take any steps to collect this ammunition because it was in Arizona, had never come to New Mexico, and didn't match the live rounds on the set of rust. So what ends up happening is Mr. Teskey is called to New Mexico by Mr. Bowles to testify at the Gutierrez trial. And you can hear on the video that the court heard Mr. Teskey say, the defense attorney, that's not me, asked him to bring samples of that ammunition. According to Mr. Teskey, he brought the samples of the ammunition, showed them to the defense attorney, and the defense attorney said, I don't want those. I'm not going to use those. And by the way, I'm not going to call you as a witness. So Mr. Teskey sat in court during the trial. And then at some point, contacted the deputies downstairs and said, I have this ammunition. So he tried to give it to the defense attorney, who's the person who asked him to bring it. The defense attorney said no. And he then tried to get a hold of Detective Hancock, who was not available because she was with me. So then he ends up going to the sheriff's department and he leaves the ammunition at the sheriff's department.
Hi, Papa V.
I was contacted, I don't think it was the same day, but I'm not 100% sure. It's possible that it was, by Detective Hancock, and she indicated.
Guys, I'm still baffled that we're watching a prosecutor on the stand talk about Brady evidence and having to answer for that and not turning it over. And she's walking us through the story of how she had that information and how it was confusing and how some of these bullets and some of the rounds, some of them looked alike and somehow some of them didn't. And we're talking about chain of custody here. Chain of custody is so important in criminal cases because what is Brady material? If you have anything that could exculpate the defendant to prove the defendant's innocence, you need to turn it over to the defense team. That is the prosecution's job. That is a part of some of the ethical things that they need to abide by. It's in case law. It's in that Brady case. Again, I'm sorry. Some of you guys are like, please don't compare it to the Young Thug case. I'm just saying, Brian Steele has been talking about Brady evidence. I've been reading these documents to you. The word Brady now that you guys are coming up and becoming legal experts, Brady material matters so much. It totally does. But let's go back in.
That Troy Teskey had dropped off ammunition at the sheriff's department. Because I had already asked for a photograph of it, I believed that that ammunition was going to look like the photograph that Mr. Bowles had sent me. Corporal Hancock indicated that she was going to tag them into evidence and she was going to create what she called a doc report. And I said, great, do that. I was not aware at that point in time that a doc report would not have the same case number as Rust. I was not aware at that point in time that it would not be linked to the Rust case number. I understood that he had dropped off ammunition that I believed to not look similar to the ammunition from the set of Rust. And I had no idea that it wasn't going to have the same case number. I want to show the court, though, when Mr. Teskey showed up to testify with the ammunition that Mr. Bowles told him to bring to the state of New Mexico, he was not called as a witness, and Mr. Bowles said, "I'm not taking that ammunition from you." That's why. Because these are photographs from Hannah Gutierrez's cell phone extraction, and they show spot-on match for the live rounds found on the set of Rust. This is clearly the reason that Mr. Bowles said, "You and your ammunition better get out of here," because it would not have hurt the case, the state's case against Hannah Gutierrez. It would have been the best evidence I could have hoped for.
You see the lady behind Alec?
These look exactly like the ammunition, the actual ammunition that we have in evidence. And they do look like the 3 rounds that are in that envelope. So when Mr. Teskey couldn't get Mr. Bowles to take them because they were the best evidence against his client, he took them over to the sheriff's department. And when he dropped them at the sheriff's department, I was told that there was going to be a report. There was a report. I assumed they looked like these. And Detective Hancock indicated to me that because he dropped them off and he didn't wait for her, she was then going to try to follow up with him, take a statement from him, so that we could get some idea where they came from, what the relevance was, if there was any relevance at all. And he never returned her phone calls. And that's all of the information that I can give the court, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Wow. Let's see what happens next. The prosecutor on the stand, guys.
Can I ask a few questions, Your Honor?
Mr. Defense Team.
When you took over this case, the investigator handling the case, Mr. Schilling, left the case, correct?
At my request, yes.
The paralegal that was handling this case with you left the case, Mr. Tad?
At my request, yes.
Well, the first prosecutor that was working with you on this case, you selected, correct?
I did.
And he resigned too?
I wouldn't say that he resigned, no.
Okay. He didn't stay on the case for the Alec Baldwin trial, correct?
No, and he indicated that that was because he represented a labor union that's a national.
I still can't believe it. Not only is it a prosecutor on the stand, now a prosecutor is being cross-examined by the defense counsel. I think we can see how this should be possibly, not even possibly, it should be applied to the YSL case. Brian Steele should be able to do this. He should. I mean, sorry to keep comparing. I know you guys are hating it. Sorry. Like the cheap seats in the back hate when I make mistakes. But listen, I'm just showing you what you're seeing. You're seeing a prosecutor having to answer questions and a defense lawyer elegant, and it's not aggressive. He's asking her questions. Hey, you lost a paralegal on this case. You lost another person on this case. Watch the buildup. I'm not going to interrupt, but watch the buildup of the questions, and we're going to see why those questions helped lead the judge to her decision. This is probably the most important part of this trial. Let's go back in.
Labor union, and he was not expecting the trial to be set so quickly. He wasn't expecting it to be set in July. So when he realized that the trial was going to be set in July, he was going to be in collective bargaining agreements for his national labor union, and he wasn't going to be able to have enough time.
Erlinda Johnson, the next prosecutor selected, resigned from the case today,
She did.
based in part on the conduct we're here discussing, correct?
I believe that Ms. Johnson Ms. Johnson didn't want my understanding is that she didn't agree with the decision to have a public hearing.
On July 1st in this matter, you served a certificate of compliance with 5501, correct?
I did.
And you've never turned over the report or any of the evidence that we're talking about here at this hearing, correct?
Let's take it one at a time. I did not turn over the report. I didn't have a copy of the report. The rounds that were left at the Sheriff's Department by Troy Teskey, I have absolutely no reason to believe that they are relevant to the incident that took place on the set of Rust. These are rounds that were in the possession of Bell Reed and never left the state of Arizona.
You also did not allow the defense to view that evidence at any point during our request to review evidence in this case.
I had never seen it, and I didn't realize that it wasn't under the same case number because I'm not a law enforcement officer and I don't work at the Sheriff's Department. But you are right.
And you can see that they are Starline brass silver 45, right?
I can. And this is the best evidence against Hannah Gutierrez.
Yeah, you've said that a couple of times. Any favorable evidence you understand as a prosecutor has to be turned over to the defense, correct?
I do.
Any evidence that could be used as a defense to potentially be favorable has to be turned over to the defense.
Absolutely.
So the third Hague report that never got turned over to the defense, you understand that that's Brady evidence?
I did, yes.
Okay. And you also failed to turn that over in this case as well, correct?
And let me give you a full answer to your question. When the second Hague report came in, and I provided all of this to the defense, I sent it to the person who is managing the discovery server and asked them to upload it. It wasn't until I realized during pretrial interviews that it wasn't there that there was a problem with it. So I then...
Man, look at his face. I would have stopped her right there. This is cross-examination, prosecutor. You should know that the answer to these questions is yes or no. You are explaining. You're doing a hell of a lot of explaining. You're not taking the accountability. You're blaming it on the discovery person. The chain of custody, that's under your purview. Do you see why this defense attorney is like, oh my God, this is such bullshit? And maybe that is why we have a judge making a decision on day 3 to throw the whole thing out. It's Brady material. This is how important evidence that proves that a client could be a defendant. Sorry, not even a client. A defendant is innocent. This is how much it should matter in our criminal justice system. Let's see. Again, we're getting explanations, and we saw her run off of the scene. You could rewind it, but we saw her run off. Let's keep going.
Attempted to figure out what the problem was, and it was indicated to me that it appeared that the former paralegal who was working for the special prosecutor had removed it. So we then immediately provided it. Then during the pretrial interview of Mr. Haig, it was brought to my attention that the defense did not have the August 31st report that indicated that the gun functioned fine, perfectly fine, and that was provided immediately. I went back, I checked my email, I could see that I received it from Mr. Haig and failed to forward it on to be uploaded. And I provided it as soon as I was aware that you did not have it.
The fact that nobody at the Hannah Gutierrez retrial cross-examined Mr. Haig about the report didn't clue you into the fact that nobody had the report?
Actually, it didn't, and I'd like to address that. The reason that it didn't clue me in is because Hannah Gutierrez's defense was that the gun worked perfectly. The defense in Hannah Gutierrez was never interested in any evidence that there was an issue with the gun, because if there was an issue with the gun, it damaged her case. So what you could see, if you watched the trial or saw any of the transcripts, the defense actually brought in their own expert to say that the gun worked perfectly. So they had no interest in that information.
And actually, you elicited testimony from Mr. Haig at that trial that was inconsistent, at least partially inconsistent, as the court's aware, with his third report, correct?
Tell me what you're referring to, and I'll answer your question.
Well, there was a whole hearing about this where you saw this, and you saw me go back and forth with Mr. Haig for 25 minutes. So
I agree, but I need to know what you're talking about for me to answer your question.
Okay, if you can't answer the question, you can't answer the question.
Oh, shade!
You say that the extent of the communications you have about the doc report, as you relay it to the court, is that all you said in response was, "Great, do that." That's your testimony?
Yeah, I assumed that it was going to be tied to the same case number. So I said, great, do it, file a report.
No follow-up questions?
No, because I had a picture of the ammunition that didn't match the ammunition from the set of rust.
No concerns in your mind when you got the case file and you turned it over to us and it wasn't included?
Absolutely not. There's a terabyte of discovery. I didn't know whether this 2-page police report had been provided. And in addition to that, I had no reason to believe, and still have no reason to believe, that those rounds have anything to do with these cases.
I'm sorry, I had to pause it again. Do you see how this defense attorney is setting her up? These questions are designed to not set you up, but they are designed for yes or no. We're getting a lot, and this is why it's kind of disappointing. As a prosecutor, she knows this. She knows that when you're on cross-examination, the answers are typically yes or no. She's giving a lot of explanation because I think in this moment, guys, she knew. Look at her face. I think in this moment, she knew this case was down the tubes. Soon as that Brady material came up, and now he's questioning her on why it wasn't provided. And now she is saying there was so much, there's excuse after excuse. It was a paralegal. There was a discovery process. There was terabytes of information. All of her answers are really centered on excuses. This is kind of a professional in public embarrassment for this prosecution team. I feel, it's kind of hard to watch. But at the same time, you could see the frustration on the defense attorney's face, because it's like, we as people that watch these legal proceedings, if you live in the state where it happens, this is where your tax dollars go. That's why we've been focused on Georgia. Do you think people in New Mexico appreciate their tax dollars being thrown into situations like this? And this is really designed to show you guys that mistakes happen. It is really embarrassing. This is on national news. It was on the news in minutes. I was on the phone and I just clicked to see how the trial was going on mute, and I muted. And I saw Alec crying and I'm like, what's going on over there? But Like, think about what this prosecutor is feeling right now. That whole case, they were probably confident 3 days ago. In 72 hours went down the shitter. And poor victim, I see some of y'all in the chat. You're like, hey, someone still died. That is important. But a prosecution's team, like a team, the state's team, is to go to war for that person, is to get justice for that person. This is why when you take a job like this, it is very critical for you to not make mistakes. So no one is taking away from the fact that someone lost their life over this unfortunate incident. But look at the legal complexities. Do you see how deep it gets? That is the purpose of this channel. That is the purpose why we're looking at this. And that is why we need to really just, all of us, just need to be educated a little bit on how the legal system works. You know? But let's go back in. I think you could see it in her face. She knows
I asked
she's
you about
losing.
Mr. Haig yesterday when Ms. Popple testified. You would agree with me that her testimony under oath was false.
What part of her testimony was false? And I'll answer.
That she said that these rounds don't look anything like the rounds on the set when you elicited that testimony.
I agree with you. And I didn't realize that there were rounds that looked like that.
It's okay. In any event, when the court, and you never tested those rounds either, correct?
Any of the rounds that came from Mr. Teskey? No, because they came in just a few months ago.
And the court asked you actually one question that I want to address, which is the court said to you, well, what's interesting to me, to be quite honest, is that yesterday you didn't even want to do a written reply. You wanted to just give an oral response.
I have to say something again. I'm sorry. So this defense attorney is killing it. Here's the other thing. This is a prosecutor. Y'all have rounds. You have rounds that came from a source. Those need to be tested. He just asked her, did you test those rounds for accuracy? She said no. She just said no.
And what you said to the court was, I never saw these. I've never seen these. And I never saw the report. I have absolutely never seen these until this morning. Do you remember saying that to the court?
With regard to the 3 Starline brass, with regard to the 3 cartridges that appear to be similar to rust, yes.
Well,
I never saw them until today.
Well, but you said also, I never saw the report, right?
I never did.
Right, but don't you think, given your duty of candor to this court, that that's awfully misleading to not tell the court at that point that you knew about this when it occurred long ago?
That I knew about what?
You knew that Mr. Teskey had turned in this evidence, that you knew that the report would have existed because you just told this court that the doc report was okayed by you.
Sure.
Don't you think it was misleading to this court to not just say at that point, you know, just so you know, I know about this. I knew about this then. I was involved.
I did not intend to mislead the court. My understanding of what was dropped off at the sheriff's department is on this computer screen, and it looks absolutely nothing like the live rounds from the set of rust.
The truth of this matter is you don't like Mr. Baldwin very much, do you?
You know, that is absolutely untrue. I actually really appreciate Mr. Baldwin's movies.
That was
I
a
really
trap question.
appreciated
That was a trap.
the acting that he did.
You know she
on
lying. Look at
Saturday
his
Night Live,
face.
And I really appreciate his politics.
You told one of the witnesses who disagreed with you during an interview that you thought Mr. Baldwin was a cocksucker.
I do not recall saying that. I know that that was something that Mr. Baldwin would say on the set of Rust. I don't recall saying that.
You did not.
She called. Oh my God. Sorry, y'all. And some of y'all were like, let the video play, AV. She called the defendant a cocksucker. I'm sorry for those that don't like when I swear. Yo, we gotta rewind that. This is getting good. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Deny that under.
Baldwin would say, I do not recall saying that. I know that
I don't
that was
recall.
something that Mr. Baldwin would say on the set of Rust. I don't recall saying that.
Do you deny that under oath? Mr. Baldwin was a cocksucker.
On Saturday Night Live, and I really appreciate his politics.
You told one of the witnesses who disagreed with you during an interview that you thought Mr. Baldwin was a cocksucker.
I do not recall saying that. I know that that was something that Mr. Baldwin would say on the set of Rust. I don't recall saying that.
Do you deny that under oath?
Silence. Silence.
Without
She did.
having more information, I can tell you that I do not recall ever saying that. And if I did say it, I invite you to point it out to me.
Do y'all see the people in the back? Like, I love watching audience reactions. You see the man in the back? The other dude has his head up. He's like, is she gonna say it? Is she gonna admit it? This is funny. Oh my God.
You called him an arrogant prick to another witness.
To who? To what witness?
I'm asking you, did you call him an arrogant prick during a witness interview?
I don't believe I did. I don't recall.
You deny that.
Without knowing what you're talking about, all I can tell you is that I can't respond if I don't know what you're talking about.
And you said also to witnesses that you would teach him a lesson.
I never said to witnesses that I would teach him a lesson. Absolutely not. In fact, Mr. Spiro, I want to give a full response to your question.
Oh, come on.
I
Check her,
made
Judge.
every effort in this case to resolve this case with your client in a very favorable way for him.
All right, I'm going to move to strike this. It's not responsive.
It is
I don't want to talk about plea negotiations.
Yeah, and it's not responsive.
Thank you. This is effective lawyering. What this guy just did. You don't let witnesses in, like when you're on cross, you don't let them go on and on. Oh, let me tell you what I'm supposed to do. And here's why it's so embarrassing. She's the prosecutor, so the judge is giving her rope. But the judge also wants to see what's about to happen. She's also letting it play out. So she's not interjecting. She's not interjecting at all. Have you noticed that? We need to see what's about to play out. But this defense attorney is not letting her move. No, it's yes or no. And if you fail to answer with yes or no, for the record, we need to note it down as non-responsive, meaning she did not give an acceptable answer to that question. He's doing good, guys. He really is. He really is. Let's go back in.
So I have no further
All right,
questions.
do you have any follow-up testimony? All right.
I want to say I have no recollection of calling him any of those names. I have invited the defendant to tell me what he's talking about, and he has declined. I want the court to take notice of that.
Thank you. You may step down.
Wow, guys.
All right, any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
All right, argument, let's not, 15 minutes aside sufficient?
I don't even think that is necessary, frankly.
Do you want to make?
He said, I don't even want to break. Let's
All right.
I think
go.
the side needs further argument on this thing.
All right,
This is the judge's decision. Look at that defense attorney, guys.
so,
Look at him. He is pushed back in that chair. You can see his socks. He is pushed back. He's not even sitting at the table. He's just like, are we seriously going to allow this prosecutor's testimony to come? What are you going to do? Do you see this man in the chair there in the blue suit that just asked all those questions? This is what Brian Steele wants to do. Right? Like this is the stance. This is it. It's just like, Judge, what are you going to do? Because I can see it. Everybody can see it. The audience can see it. The people that are watching at home can see it. Everybody sees that this is not okay. This is corrupt. What are you going to do, Judge? This right here, guys, is an example. This is a beautifully put together example of how the system should work. But let's watch her make her final decision and go from there.
dismissal with prejudice is a very extreme sanction. And case law is very clear that because it's very extreme, I have to go through every single element and I have to make a very good record as to why I'm seeing what I'm seeing. So In order to establish a Brady violation, the defendant must show that the prosecution suppressed evidence, the evidence was favorable to the accused, and the evidence was material to the defense. So let's go through the elements. Suppression of evidence. The definition of suppression of elements, this is Case versus Hatch, is while the first element requires proof that the prosecution suppressed or withheld the evidence in question, it does not require a finding of bad faith or any other culpable state of mind on the part of the prosecutor. This prong is satisfied. The Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office and the prosecution failed to disclose the supplemental report to defense and provide defense an opportunity to inspect the rounds collected into evidence that Mr. Teske gave. Is the evidence favorable to the accused? The second Brady element is whether the suppressed evidence was favorable to the accused, either as impeachment or exculpatory evidence. This prong is satisfied. The suppressed evidence is favorable to the accused. It is impeachment evidence, has even been offered in this trial as impeachment evidence, and is potentially exculpatory to the defense. Critically, the exculpatory value cannot be analyzed at such a late juncture because of the non-disclosure. Is the evidence material? While post-trial discovery of evidence under Brady requires a reasonable probability that the result of the proceeding would have been different, discovery of evidence during trial requires an evaluation of whether the late tender has impeded the effective use of evidence in such a way that it impacts the fundamental fairness of the proceedings, and that is State versus Huerta Castro. This evidence is material. The late discovery of this evidence during trial has impeded the effective use of evidence in such a way that it has impacted the fundamental fairness of the proceedings. The defense is not in a position to test the state's theory as to the source of the live rounds that killed Ms. Hutchins. I'm also going to take a look at Harper, State versus Harper. The assessment of sanctions depends upon the extent of the government's culpability, weighed against the amount of prejudice to the state. Quoting Chenard. Let's go through culpability. Our case law generally provides that the refusal to comply with a district court's discovery order only rises to the level of exclusion or dismissal where the state's conduct is especially culpable, such as where evidence is unilaterally withheld by the state in bad faith, or all access to the evidence is precluded by state intransigence. The state is highly culpable for its failure to provide this discovery to the defendant. The state unilaterally withheld the supplemental report. Santa Fe County Sheriff's Officer made the decision, and apparently also with the prosecutor, pursuant to Hancock's testimony, that the evidence was of no evidentiary value and failed to connect the evidence to the instant case. The case agent, as well as pursuant to Hancock's testimony, Ms. Morrissey, was aware of the new evidence and yet did not make an effort to disclose it to defense. The state's willful withholding of this information was intentional and deliberate. If this conduct does not rise to the level of bad faith, it certainly comes so near to bad faith as to show signs of scorching. Prejudice. When discovery has been produced late, prejudice does not accrue unless the evidence is material and the disclosure is so late that it undermines the defendant's preparation for trial. The court concludes that this conduct is highly prejudicial to the defendant. The jury has been sworn, jeopardy has attached, and this disclosure during the course of trial is so late that it undermines the defendant's preparation for trial. There is no way for the court to right this wrong. Lesser sanctions under Harper. Trial courts possess broad discretionary authority to decide what sanction to impose when a discovery order is violated, State versus Lemire. The sanction of dismissal is the only warranted remedy. The jury has been sworn, jeopardy has attached, and a mistrial would not be based upon manifest necessity. Further, the sanction of dismissal is warranted in this case. The state has repeatedly made representations to defense and to the court that they were compliant with all their discovery obligations. Despite their repeated representations, they have continued to fail to disclose critical evidence to the defendant. Brady and Harper are satisfied. Dismissal with prejudice is warranted. Court also has power, inherent power. Per State versus Lemire, where discovery violations inject needless delay into the proceedings, courts may impose meaningful sanctions to effectuate their inherent power and promote efficient judicial administration. The state's discovery violation has injected a needless, incurable delay into the instant jury trial. Dismissal with prejudice is warranted to ensure the integrity of the judicial system and the efficient administration of justice. Your motion to dismiss with prejudice is granted.
There it is. I mean, there it is, guys. Alex Baldwin's trial was done in 3 days. And y'all are like, cover this, cover this, cover this. But at the same time, I think I'm actually happy I didn't cover it. Because now you see why justice is so important. Now you see the importance of Brady material being properly given to the other side. Now you see, and I hope both Judge Glenville and the other judge in the YSL case, Judge Cross, and now you guys see. In this state, it was done in 3 days. In Georgia, we are on month 7. The whole thing with little Woody that happened almost 2-3 weeks ago had Brady material in this secret meeting included, whether he said it or not. But the fact is, he said, I did these crimes. What's the statute of limitation for murder? There's immunity. Let me read some supers and Let me read some supers. Get my mind off of this. Shout out to Beth in Seattle. Welcome, Beth. Welcome to the community. Super excited to have you here. And yes, I just got into my passionate justice mode for a moment. I hope you don't mind, but welcome, Beth. I'm super excited to have you as a new member on the channel. Shout out to D, who says prosecutorial misconduct and Brady, next YSL. We will see. Shout out to Mango Gelato. We talked about Mango Gelato. What I always ask you guys what your favorite ice cream flavors are. But before you answer that question, I want to know, put a 1 in the chat if you think Alec Baldwin is responsible for this young woman's death. Put a 2 in the chat if you don't believe he is responsible for this woman's death. I want to be fair to a lot of folks that are here, and I'm just curious. I want to poll you guys and see what you think. I am seeing some 1s. I am seeing some 2s. Hey, Lady Di, I'm seeing some 2s. You guys are kind of split. Of course, there's always a 3. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of 2s now coming through. Author said he popped her. Okay, I mean, he popped her. He popped her. But here's the thing. This person says guilty more than OJ. Life on 18 Wheels says, I think he should be financially responsible. Variant says, I don't know. I didn't watch. I'm seeing a lot of 2s. I'm seeing a ton of 2s. The ones were coming through. I see a 1.5. That's fair. Hi, John. John is saying 2. So it's kind of a mixture of both, but let me come back to some supers. But again, like just case comparison. It's just so interesting to see a case dismissed on the same principles. But let's go back. Let's see what you guys have to say in super chats. Shout out to Mr. Told You with the $10, says the judge and the DA in the YSL case are fighting together to keep it alive because the case is a cover case for the RICO case against Trump. Well, we can go down the legal rabbit hole, but yes. So in Fulton County, there are 2 RICO cases that are active right now, and there could be more. But 2 of the most active ones are the YSL trial. And we also have a super active case with, well, not super active. It is currently halted but this is the Trump election interference case in Fulton County in Georgia that was recently put on ice. And the reason why it was put on ice is because it is at the Court of Appeals, and we're not going to hear arguments on that until after the election. Now, the reason why that becomes a thing with similarities is because the district attorney's office has filed a RICO charge against the Trump camp and the co-defendants there with that particular case, the same thing on this side. So interesting. We will see what happens with it. Hopefully it's 7 p.m. now. I don't think we're going to have a decision on the YSL trial today. We will likely tap in on Monday morning to see where we are with that one. Shout out to the Professional Nomad podcast with the $2. Says, good afternoon, AV. Good afternoon to you. Hope you are doing well. Look at Caballo Escoro. He's gifted 10 AV to the 7th Power memberships. I did see a lot of you guys say thank you to him if you received a membership from Caballo. And Caballo, did you change your picture? Is that a hat? What are you doing there, Caballo? He has gifted 10 memberships. Super, super generous. He does not have to do that. Very, very nice of him. If you've received a membership to this community from Caballo, please tell him thank you. Doesn't have to do it. Very, very generous. And again, he is empowering you guys to be a part of things, for me to give you information a little bit sooner, for us to, for you guys to become shareholders in my community. And I run a lot of stuff by you behind the scenes, lots of polls and things like that, membership discounts, all types of stuff. So I just want to thank him for doing that. Thank you so much, Caballo. And look at him, he drops a $20 super after the fact and puts up 2 arms with the heart. Thank you so much, Caballo. I really appreciate you. Shout out to the Little Gaming Channel with a $50 super chat. No comment, no question, pure love of the game. Appreciate you so much, Little Gaming Channel. Again, you have no idea. You support me, you support Lead, super, super big part of this community, has a channel himself. If one of the mods are in the chat, and if you could drop the link to the Little Gaming Channel's channel, he does some gaming stuff. It's exactly what it says on the screen. If you just want to hang out with him and watch his content, please do that. He's an amazing man, super, super generous, and a huge friend to me and Lead. So check him out if you haven't already. He also drops a $20 super, and he says Prosecutor Glanville should be ashamed of himself. I mean, Prosecutor Glanville, I see what you did there. It took me a while to catch on to that. But thank you so much, Little Gaming Channel. And I believe he is the stream sponsor. He is sponsoring the stream that we are watching right now. So thank you so much, TLGC. If you guys can do me a favor and type in TLGC in the chat, that would be fantastic. Look who's on my side. Shout out to Lord Vegeta. Lord Vegeta. You know, I was trying to pronounce your name the other day on Lead side when we were talking about, because like I see Dragon Ball Z, like I know, you know, he's like kind of like, I don't think that he grew up on Dragon Ball Z. So when I see it, I'm like, let me put him on to it, you know, that sort of thing. So it's good to see you on my side. Welcome to the community. Shout out to What You Say with the $5. What You Say says, I don't know if you realize it, but your channel and many more are making them accountable. The judges have to consider the publicity behind their case. Yes. Yes. I mean, this is made available to the public, not even just here in the US, it is across the world, right? Like everyone's seeing this. Some of you guys tap in from like the UK. Some of you guys are watching from Germany. Some of you guys are tapping in from Australia, and you're like, hey, what's going on with your legal system over there? Like there's all types of high profile cases. And when these bits of news come in, one, we like to get it to you guys fast, but two, we want to provide you with legal commentary that's thoughtful, that's accurate, but also show you how it kind of connects to other legal issues that haven't been resolved. You know, I keep bringing up YSL because that's been the focus of my channel for these past few days, but it's not the exact same facts, scenario, and circumstances, but Brady material's at issue. Like, it's just at issue. Shout out to Sandy with the $5 who says 2 different stories between Alec and Woody. Yes, Yes, and I'm not taking that away. I know I'm comparing them too close, guys, because you have to understand when there's a legal theory and you have a legal mind, like in my mind, Brady is like at the forefront of it. And like I said, different facts, different circumstances, different outcomes. But in one hand, this is where you see a defense attorney looking for Brady material that the judge saw was a problem and it wasn't properly turned over and it wasn't properly shared with the other side. Whereas we have another case where, again, it's not the same, but Brady material is at issue. The judge is essentially a referee and is supposed to call like, hey, you did not properly give it to the other side. That's what we're not seeing in the YSL case. So apologies and agree, Sandy, two different scenarios, but know that the most important thing you should take away from this stream today is understanding how important Brady material is in criminal defense trials. Okay, so I hope that cleared it up. Shout out to Mr. Told You with another 10, says it's not about allegations of involuntary manslaughter in this case, or the alleged deletion and criminal activity by YSL members. It's the integrity of the process that addresses the allegations. Yes, that's it. I totally agree with you. I can't say it any better than that. So thank you, Mr. Told You. I appreciate that one. Shout out to Lottie. Hi, Lottie. Thank you so much for the 45 other bucks. I know you told us where you're from, Lottie. I forget. I do remember seeing this like yesterday or the day before. But let's see what you have to say here. Lottie says, now that the Baldwin judge has some unexpected time off, maybe she can take a trip to Fulton County and clean up Glanville's mess. I mean, I agree, Lottie. Maybe they can be pals and figure out what's going on. So thank you so much, Lottie. Appreciate you. Shout out to Guy Incognito with $2, says Alec didn't load the gun. Cry harder, Trump fans. Well, that's the other thing. I'll explain something to you guys real quick. In business law, they have this concept called respondeat superior. That means if you own a business, if you're a manager in a business, you have to answer to the crimes that your employees while employed or on the day of work, if they commit a crime or something, you would have to answer for the crimes of those employees for your business. Now, this is a criminal trial that we just watched, right? Brady only applies in criminal trials. It does not apply in civil trials. Now, families typically, let's say you have an accident or someone is killed in this scenario, right? You can have a civil case and a criminal case. So what that means is you can go after the people that actually committed the crimes criminally and see what we can do as far as justice. But even on the civil side, if you want to recuperate for an accidental death or something along those lines, then you can absolutely sue the business and see who's, like get the people that are responsible to actually give you monetary damages, so to pay you back for what happened. I mean, with that was one of the harder things that I learned in law school too, was like, hey, with the civil stuff, like what dollar amount do we put on people's lives, accidental deaths, things like that. But this stuff happens. It happens every day in the law. So I'm just happy that we can talk about it. But thank you so much for the super Guy Incognito. Shout out to Camila with $4.99. She says, AV on the cusp of breaking news and lead probably sleep under the blanket. I put it on my Instagram today. If you guys were watching us 2 days ago, then you saw the infamous Nigeria moment, that Nigerian accent. You saw the weighted blanket thing. Like, we had so much fun 2 nights ago on that stream. We had such a grand old time. So I encourage you guys to check out my co-pilot, lead attorney on his side. And we had such an excellent stream. But yes, he enjoys his sleep and his weighted blanket. If you know, you know. Shout out to Lord Vishita with the $5, says, I appreciate you pronouncing it right every time. You see me, like, I'm like Vegeta. He's like Vegeta. We have so much fun. And a shout out to Rod, who hits me with the 20. He says, AV7 occupada hoje. Yes. Portuguese, meaning that I was occupied today. Guys, this is my second stream of the day. I was not planning it. This is going to have, actually, I was going to stream and then stream with Lead. And guys, we are not going to stream today together. We decided to push that back a little bit, scheduling conflict, that sort of thing. But that's okay. It's going to be fine because I am working with my editor to get you guys your weekly YSL trial recap. That should be ready by Sunday, Monday. So we'll get that out for you guys so you don't miss anything. So before court starts on Monday, if it does, or while we're waiting for Judge Krause to issue her ruling, you will be brought up to speed with everything that's transpired this week because there's been a lot. I like to simplify it for you guys so you will have a nice little recap. But yeah, Rod, like I'm always working, you know me, whether it's streaming, whether it is trying to find ways to make content better, whether it's making merch for you guys, learning more about you guys so me and my team can deliver you great content. That's what we do. I love this work, and you guys know I'm a law nerd. That's just what it is, you know. So I am all caught up on supers. Let me see what we have for Cash App to make sure I didn't miss any of you guys. I think we might be up to date. I always like to check. Just kidding. Shout out to Eric who sent me $50. Eric, thank you. Eric sends 50 and he says, messy hair, don't care. Yeah. Like I said, I was on the phone with my homegirl. We were talking about something unrelated and I'm like, oh my God, let me just do something with my hair and just jump on real quick and talk to them. Because I was on the phone with her. I was like, hold on, is Alec Baldwin crying right now? And I was like, I have to go. I'm going to jump on this live and bring it to everybody real quick. So Eric, thank you. This is extremely generous. Again, you don't have to do it. You don't. But like, you know, again, I like stepping over here and really teaching you guys about how the legal system works. But now I think we're all going to step into next week with high expectations for what's happening in Fulton County after watching the verdict just come in and watching this just now. Before I go, I want to catch another one. Shout out to Jackie, who just sent me $10. She says, no comment, no question, pure love of the game. Thank you so much, Jackie. Kay Cooper's popping in right now when we're done. She's like, hey, everybody, girl, you missed it all. So for those of you guys that are watching this on replay, as always, me and my team will chop this up in timestamp so you can quickly go through it. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. It's been a very, very busy week. Keep your notifications on. I did a Johnny Cochran review earlier today. We did this as well. So that way we're up to speed with the Alec Baldwin thing. Lots of content coming. We're working on a Diddy video. We're working on a recap for the YSL trial. There's much, much more in store. So please make sure your notifications are on so you get to the content first. Love you guys. Stay safe out there. Have an excellent weekend. You'll be seeing more of us, but we'll see you in the next one. Bye.